Welcome back to Freedom's Foundation. Now we're going to move on to how this ruling violates the Constitution and how that puts your freedom in danger. One of the biggest things that annoyed me about this ruling, it still blows my mind, is that John Roberts based this decision on the idea that he needs to do anything possible he can to keep from ruling a piece of legislation unconstitutional. And here's what he wrote in his decision. Quote, "The question is not whether that is the most natural interpretation of the mandate, but only whether it is a, quote, fairly possible one. As we have explained, every reasonable construction must be resorted to in order to save a statute from unconstitutionality." Why? Why do we have to go to every single resort we can to save from ruling a piece of legislation unconstitutional? Why are we supposed to bend over backwards to save a piece of crappy legislation that was on dubious constitutional ground to begin with? Besides, John Roberts, where is that in this Constitution? Can you tell me? He can't. You want to know why? It's not in here. You know where he gets his basis for that idea? It's from a Supreme Court precedent. He's basing that on Supreme Court precedent. So basically, he's destroying our freedom, he's destroying our liberty, all on some stupid Supreme Court precedent. And you know what? Supreme Court decisions don't trump the language of the Constitution. This is the supreme law of the land, not what some judge said about 100 years ago. It's a ridiculous interpretation. Now, here's the problem. Roberts has his head so far up his backside when it comes to making sure he preserves the image of the court and trying to make sure that he doesn't overturn Congress, that he's completely lost any idea of what the purpose of his job is. His job as a Supreme Court justice is not to preserve the constitutionality of a piece of legislation. His job is to preserve the Constitution. And as a part of that, our liberty. This bogus ruling that he gave us today does neither of those things. Now, all right, let's move on to this whole idea that he says this is a tax. Well, even if that flimsy logic that he gave us that this is a tax is true, let's say that he's right. That still doesn't make this bill constitutional. Congress's taxing authority is not unlimited. They can't just tax us forever for whatever they want. Believe it or not, the founders put limits on that. Now, one of the problems we have when we interpret the Constitution today, yes, I'm a little passionate again today. Been a long day. All right. One of the problems that we have when we interpret the Constitution is we lose sight of what the purpose for this was and how all this was designed to protect our freedom. We have to keep in mind when we're interpreting the Constitution the purpose it was created for. And nobody, no rational person will doubt that the founders intended to create a limited government. They wanted limited government, right? Well, this Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, whatever you want to call it, completely destroys that. If you can tax people, if the federal government up here can tax people for whatever purpose they want, if they can tax these people down here as a way of forcing them to buy health care, well, there's no limit on government, because then you can tax people to force them to buy housing, and you can tax them to force them to have a job. You can do all those things until all of a sudden, ooh, yay, communism! You've implemented a complete communist system based on this idea that you can tax people into creating the behavior that you want. Obviously, that's not what the founders intended. They limited the government, and more importantly for this case, they limited the taxing authority for a reason. We're going to get into that in just a minute. Now, here's what the limits are in terms of taxing power. Article 1, Section 8, it says that Congress shall have the power to lay and collect taxes in order to, quote, pay the debts and provide for the common defense and the general welfare of the United States. So let's look at these. Does Obamacare tax us for the purposes of paying our debts? I mean, I can't even come up with a real response for that. I mean, it might be imposing a tax for the purpose of creating some debts, I have to tell you that, but not paying any of them, that's for sure. Providing for the common defense? Not likely. General welfare, this is the one that Roberts cites. Well, there's a problem there. General welfare doesn't mean you tell individual people what you can do. General welfare doesn't mean that they can tax us for the purposes of making sure they do good things for the country. It had a specific purpose. What the founders meant when they said general welfare, they meant for the general welfare of the country, not for the specific welfare. Now, some people would say, oh, but, you know, everybody having health care and everybody being healthy would be good for the entire country, right? So that's the general welfare. No, that wasn't the purpose. If you want an idea, well, basically, the idea behind the general welfare is you wanted to create a strong structure to the government. The purpose of the federal government is to create a strong structure, a positive environment that these states can operate in. They want to make sure that the country as a whole is solid, is strong. I look at it as like, again, if you're an owner of one of these huge commercial skyscrapers in New York or one of the major cities, and you have all those businesses that rent out the buildings there, right? Or rent out the different floors. Well, as an owner, what is your responsibility? Your responsibility is to make sure that building is safe and secure and that it's a positive environment for those businesses to work in. So if you were to provide for the general welfare of that building, it would be to maintain the structure, you know, make sure it's secure, those types of things. But you would have no business going in and telling what those businesses should do. Even if you said, oh, I got this great healthcare plan and I'm going to impose it on the entire building, well, that's none of your business. Even worse would be if you went in and told individual employees what they could do. Again, none of your business. The same thing here. General welfare means creating a strong structure for the entire country, not for doing things that you think would be good for each individual, because if that were the case, again, it creates an unlimited government, a government that can do anything it wants, because I can make up ideas for why just about anything would be good for the country. Hey, wouldn't it be great for everybody to have a house? Yeah, let's tax people if they don't have a house. Oh, okay. Oh, you know what would be good if people all ate broccoli? Let's tax them if they don't eat broccoli. I mean, you could do anything from this. So, again, there has to be some limit on government. What was it? Well, it's what the founders intended, and it's what the people of the United States ratified. We ratified that the federal government could tax people, not directly. The 16th Amendment did that, which we'll get to in a second. The federal government could tax things for the purposes of making sure we had a strong union, for making sure we had a strong country, not for shaping the behavior of individual citizens. So the bottom line here is, Obamacare, if it's a tax, which apparently it is because the Supreme Court says so, if it's a tax, it's still not laid for any of the purposes that are given in this Constitution, so it's still unconstitutional. The last thing I want to get into is this. This tax, this new Obama health tax, is actually a tax on liberty. Liberty is having the ability to make choices for yourself, to be able to do what you want with your own life. What this tax is doing is, if you make your own decision, if you make a choice for yourself, and it's the decision that the government doesn't like, they're going to tax you for that. So they're going to tax you for exercising your right to liberty. That is absolutely unacceptable in this country, especially in a country that was dedicated to securing the rights to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, which, by the way, this bill destroys all three of those in one way or another. It destroys our lives, it will destroy our liberty, and it will destroy our ability to pursue happiness. So it should be absolutely cut and dried that this is an unconstitutional bill, but apparently not. Now, for any of you who are watching this video who think that the healthcare bill is just fantastic and you're so excited that they upheld it, be careful. Because if the government has the power to use its taxing authority to force other people to do things that you think are great, well, that same government has the power to force you to do things that you don't want to do. So just imagine all the things that evil conservatives could do to you if they ever get power in the government. Yeah, you might want to keep that in mind the next time you start giving our government more and more power.